Welcome to another episode of An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. My name is Sibonisile Ngubane-Khosa, and I'm so excited that you've taken the time to join me as we learn and grow together. Let's get into it, shall we? Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of An Extraordinary Take. My name is Sbo, your host, and as always, so excited to be sitting here and catching up with you again and having conversations that are really meaningful and will add value to your life and mine. I'm particularly excited about today's episode and guest, as I am joined by Motsabi Makhetha. Did I get it right? Yay!
Got it.
Listen, the Zulu in me was like going hard. Like I was so nervous. Motsabi Makhetha. Welcome, Motsabi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming through. Do you just want to tell our audience about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Okay, who am I? So first and foremost, I am God's favorite.
I love that.
Right? That's where everything starts. I am a spiritual hun. I am my ancestors' wildest dream coming true. And I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm the third daughter to my parents, and I'm a family hun, right?
I love that.
But over and above everything, there's God, like I said, and there's constant learning. So I'm a constant student.
Yeah. I love that. I think I came across you on social media. You've got a platform called Marketing by Her.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that works?
So Marketing by Her actually came second. What came first was actually Invitations by Her.
Okay.
And that was a business that stemmed from a need to have an outlet for creativity.
Okay.
And I looked at the invitations that people had and were putting together, and they were very not inclusive of our culture and the things that we add, like mikorote if you're Soto, like Zulu shields if you're obviously Zulu, and so forth. So I was like, okay, how's about I actually go onto Canva and start a business that literally makes South Africanized traditional wedding invitations, and then that took off. And within that space, I then started having people reaching out to me and saying, hey, you've just done my invitation. Do you have a caterer? Do you have somebody who does these kind of beads? Do you know somebody who can give me this kind of decor? And I thought to myself, okay, an opportunity exists for a marketplace. So that's when the Traditional Events Directory was then formed, which is pretty much a marketplace that any kind of business that exists within the eventing space can list their services. And anybody who's planning any kind of event, from umembeso, umemolo, birthdays, anything along those lines, can hop on and decide to pick a service from there and get assisted. And then I've just started with Memories by Her. So there's like 4.
Wow.
So I then decided everything needs to fall under one name. And I am basically focusing on marketing businesses and services within the eventing space. So then I named it Marketing by Her as the parent company to all of those babies.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So have you always kind of been business minded? Like how did your business journey, or what kind of made you catch the business bug to get to a point where you've now got all these 3 entities in one?
So when I started my career, I actually did chefing, right? Okay. And qualified chef, and I went into the business space because I wanted to express myself. But I think I went into it too prematurely.
Okay.
I must have been about 22. So I didn't quite have the professionalism and the know-how that comes with actually being in corporate and watching the people that have built businesses do things in a certain way. So it's always been a space that I always thought I'd actually really like to go back into. And with my current employer that I work for, I work for a company that's a fintech based out of San Fran, and our guys are ex-Google guys, right? And I looked at them and I thought, being in such an inspirational space, how do I take these lessons and learnings here that I get on a daily basis and actually just implement them to what I love? So that's where that's...
Sure. So what you're talking about, it's a little bit of what we touched on before, which is you've got this business, but you still have your, what we call a 9-to-5.
Correct.
What informed that decision? Because I think a lot of the times when somebody's got a dream and they've decided that they want to be an entrepreneur, they can get so excited. And a lot of the times what they'll do is they're just like, I'm quitting my job. Whatever savings I had is going into this, and this is what I'm going to do. And sometimes it depends. Everybody's journeys is different. And I know particularly like in South Africa, because of how difficult the job space is, right? Entrepreneurship is often kind of placed as, this is actually, you don't have to answer to anybody. You can do your own thing. This is your own dream, and I often see it a lot on social media about, oh, you guys are still working for people. You guys still have bosses. I'm my own boss. So there is that like romanticizing that. What made you, as successful as your business is, being and growing, decide that you would still stick with your 9-to-5 while pushing your business?
So the business is app-based. Right? And in order to build an app, it actually requires significant capital outlay. And that required having some sort of, there's my savings, yes, I put that into the business. But then as you're building this Rolls Royce that you want to take off the lot, you then realize more money is needed. And what then happens is you need to ask for a loan. And on the back of a loan, you need to have a job. You need to have some sort of way to say, I do have income coming in. And the business, while it is growing, is not yet at a stage that it can actually sustain my lifestyle or sustain my dreams or even sustain itself. So it's a great incubator. When I started, I actually did a lot of looking at how do you start a web-based app business and so forth. And what a lot of the people said was people overestimate what a business can do in a year. Overestimate. And they underestimate what it can do in 10 years. So when I started with the notion of, for the first 2 or 3 years, this is going to be an incubation program. And in an incubation program, I'm going to plow everything I have into it while still making sure I'm not pulling anything out of it as yet. Because it's too soon to pull anything out of it.
So, and I mean, that's really tricky if you're starting a business with the mind of, I've got my savings, I'm going to put them into ensuring that I've got an office, whatever the case is, just the beginnings of the runnings of it. And then you think like, oh, probably in 6 months, then we'll start making money and then I can start earning a salary. What do you say to somebody that's kind of thinking it from that perspective? Because you're saying, the way that you've looked at like your kind of business model is like for the first 2 to 3 years, you're taking nothing from it.
Correct.
All you're doing is putting in without expectation of the business giving you anything back, regardless of whether it's making money or not. How does that work? And what do you say to somebody that's like, no, I'm starting a business so that I can make money?
Firstly, to start off a business with the sole purpose of making money is also, for me, I'd say a flawed place to start. Your business should start from the point of, I am solving a problem. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. Because when you're saying, I'm making a business to make money, the first month that it doesn't make money, you need to have a greater purpose than the money, right? And for me, that greater purpose was, I've done the social media things in regards to invitations by her, struggled through the algorithms and so forth. With my experience of starting my own catering business back when I started, I was like, okay, how do I take all my expertise that I've learned as a go-to-market specialist, right? and put it together for people so that I can make their lives easier on one particular platform where I help them manage everything through my expertise, right? And there are days I want to quit because things are just not working. But I now have 500 signed up businesses on it. And when I want to quit, I'm thinking, you're letting 500 other people down. And these people, you've said to them that join my platform and I will help you grow, right? And that for me is the greater why. And for me, I will make business once the businesses grow. So for me, I will be happy once the businesses grow and people can have their events planned by people that they normally would not be able to find. Once that is sorted, we can look thirdly, at the money side of things.
So that comes much, much later. What have you learned from being in the corporate space that has helped you be able to run your business better? How has still being in the corporate space equipped you to be a better entrepreneur?
Systems.
Oh, that's a good one.
Systems.
Sure.
People half-ass things, for lack of a better word, and don't fully understand that in order to build something, there needs to be a foundation. And for it to grow properly, it needs to be on a solid foundation. And even when I started, I love that scripture that says, unless
the Lord builds a house.
The Lord builds a house, those who labor at it labor in vain. You need to get your foundations right. Otherwise, you're laboring in vain and you're laboring at a business that's going to collapse, right? And you look at the fundamentals of what a good business has. There's HR, there's marketing, there's a plan, right? There's goals, there's targets. And every day in my current role, I get a monthly target sheet. We reevaluate last month, right? But then we say, okay, that's where we are, where we going. And a lot of people just wing it.
Yeah.
There's no plan. I actually, once I started, I put up a whiteboard in my room next to my bed. And on it, I've got work, I have school, I have home life, and I have business life. And I write on it every Monday, everything that needs to be done in that week. Systems.
Sure. That's incredible. And I think I particularly love that point because I know when it comes to our businesses, particularly as Black people, systems is one of the things that we really, really struggle with. And I think sometimes we think that you can start putting in systems when the business has reached a certain level. And a lot of the times what actually happens is you take too long to build those systems that by the time the company has grown, it is no longer, it's now been built by the lack of systems. So it's now functioning in the chaos outside of those systems. But I mean, to really simplify it, what does it look like for a very young, you're just starting, think of somebody who's like a supplier, because they could think, oh yeah, but systems and only that's for like big companies. I'm just starting out. But I think when I hear systems, it's just being organized. It's knowing what it is that we're doing, why are we doing it? And then also being able to go back and reflect on what's working, what isn't, what do we need to kind of shift. So if you've just started your business. And I mean, we're seeing a lot of that happening, right? We're seeing influencers start businesses. We're seeing, high school students start their own. Anybody can start their own business. What does it look like when you're really at grassroots for you to put systems in place for your business? And what are some of the examples of what those systems can look like that doesn't require hectic money or anything, that just allows you to be able to see what you're doing and why you're doing it?
So I'm the number one fan of the University of YouTube. I pay 55 Rand for that thing and I get so much knowledge out of it. And There is nothing new under the sun, right? If you want to learn how to be happy, Google podcasts about being happy. If you want to learn how to make money, go Google podcasts about making money. And as a person, you know your weaknesses also, right? So when I started my systems and so forth, I went down a rabbit hole on apps. I listened to how Airbnb was put together, and I listened to constant interviews from the guys from Airbnb. I listened to constant interviews from the guys from Uber. The app is not the same, but it's an app. So I needed to understand what can or cannot go wrong so that I can set systems. And in all of them, the thing was the same. It may not take off as quickly as you need it to. So make sure that you've got enough to sustain it long enough for that aha moment to finally hit and for it to catapult and go great and big. And also when we finally saw Uber, nobody knows that Uber wasn't an overnight success. Uber started
way back.
Multiple iterations of it before we know it as the successful app that it is today. But the guys didn't quit. So systems need to be put into place, and you need to give yourself the grace to understand that even in entrepreneurship, even the likes of Donald Trump have been bankrupt and had to build up again. And these are seasoned entrepreneurs who run empires, but you can lose it and you can build it up again, but you will fall to the level of your systems. Failure to plan is planning to fail.
Sure. That's such a great point. And I think like when we see the kind of bigger brands, you kind of think they've just always been like that. And it's such a long journey. But I do love what you're saying about like, it's that system that you've put in place that is going to carry you, whether you're successful, whether you're dwindling, whether you're, in the months that are great and the months that aren't great, putting that foundation. And I guess it's what you're talking about is also market research, right? But also maybe not market research, but actually looking at the industry that you're in and other businesses that are in that industry and looking at what it is that they've done, because there really is nothing new under the sun. And I think a lot of the times when you come up with a new idea and you're like, oh, this is so creative, it's like, it's just yours. And it's like, no, somebody has probably done something similar.
Correct.
So what is it that you can learn from them? So I really, really like that. Now I want to go into your specific business, and a lot of what you do is centered around the events business. And I think back particularly like weddings and things like that. And I think back to planning my own wedding and actually not even I didn't want to have a big wedding.
Yeah.
But just because of how stressful it can be, and because of what a messy industry that is, right? Like just the other day we saw something on social media. There was this girl crying because her dress, I don't know whether it didn't arrive on time or whether it arrived and it was, incorrect. And we now, like a lot of my friends go to events and do stuff like this. And what we've now always started doing is whenever you're speaking to a supplier, you will not tell them the exact date of when your event is, right? So if you need a garment, for example. So
Fact.
if my event is on the 20th of March, I'm going to say it's on the 15th of March, because I know you're going to lie to me. And I know that on the 15th, when I come to you and now I'm asking Uba, oh, can I fetch the thing? You're like, oh, it's not ready. It's not. And the many times that has happened, like the horror stories of the event spaces are actually insane. I saw another one where I think they were doing like a Thanksgiving thing for their parents and the decor didn't arrive. I think the lady bought just like a couple of chairs. And the girl was crying because she's like, what am I supposed to do? So why is the event space the way that it is? And what is it like when you start a platform like yours, where you're working with suppliers that are predominantly in the event space, how is it that you mitigate that? Because it really just looks like one of the most disorganized industries there is. You get really good suppliers, but somebody will let you down. Why, in your experience, what are some of the shortfalls? What's missing in that space? Is it not regulated is incorrect? Is it because it's just like something that somebody does on the side? Like, what is it? Why isn't it so well structured that if you say, I need something by 11 o'clock because the event starts at 3, you know that it's going to happen? Often you're so stressed because chances are it will be late. Why is that in your experience?
Okay, so when you enter the event space, you're dealing with a lot of creatives. Right?
Okay.
And creatives tend not to be type A structured people.
Fair enough.
Right? So you're dealing with designers. And can I tell you, I'm a creative myself. And I can tell you for a fact when I need to do posting for content and stuff, there's a week where the creative light just does not load shedding, like full on blackout. And for a whole week, I am stuck because my mind just can't get there. There's this designer who's looking at your dress and they're like, there's something missing. I just don't know what, right? There's so many moving parts in planning an event that you actually need a mixture of creativity, but also professionalism, right? Which is where my platform tries to come in so that we can incubate and have these communications and coaching sessions with our suppliers to say, this is how you need to show up to be proper. And of course, like I said, systems that don't exist. But they don't know they need those systems. They just think, my creativity is enough. It's not enough.
Sure.
It is not enough. And being trustworthy, showing up when you say you're going to show up, your word in business goes far beyond your talent world. And a lot of creative people are sitting with dead businesses simply because they weren't professional about it. And that's why I really appreciate the time I had within the corporate space, and I'm still having within the corporate space, to learn basic business etiquette, because people do business with people.
Yeah. I will say, as you say that, I think the biggest thing is one, that professionalism, because a lot of the times when you're doing something creatively, right? Like if you make dresses, that's just something, that's your passion, that's something, sometimes you may not necessarily have gone to study for it. And then you are making these clothes in your back room. Again, there is no system. You make it as and when the inspiration comes. And then when you start getting clients, you think that you're going to be able to maintain that business the same way that you did when you were just doing it for the love of it, right? You think that, when I feel like it, then I'm gonna make this dress. And you probably also think, 15, I've been able to make dresses in 2 days before. So I'm going to start on the 13th. And then another order comes or whatever, and life happens. And I think I really, really have to say that I, for one, hate it when we amongst ourselves say that, supporting Black businesses sucks because they will let you down. I don't like rhetoric like that. But I do think that there is space for us as Black entrepreneurs and customers to have more honest conversations about how we are letting each other down and how our lack of professionalism is giving everybody a bad name, right? And I think it's not a matter of us just being Black, it's a matter of us taking ourselves and our businesses seriously. So even if you don't have a warehouse as yet for the garments that you make, have those systems, have that whiteboard, or use your writing pad to say, in this week, I've got these orders. This is how long it's going to take for me to do this one. This is how long it's going to take for me to do this one. I would actually like to deliver 2 days before. And also, I would say in the same breath, like, what is your not unique selling point, but what's the thing that's going to set you apart from an experience perspective? Because you've got all these people, they all make dresses, but what if you decided that I will always have my dresses ready before my client needs them? And that becomes your niche thing, where I'm like, oh, I know that if I go to Freeman, like, I can go to whoever else, but I know with Freeman, it's going to be ready earlier. So if there's anything that needs changing, it allows me time. And so it gives me that peace of mind. And I think a lot of the times we just can't get out of our own heads of seeing these businesses as just like, it's just a thing. It's like we think that, oh no, I'm going to only start taking it seriously when I've got employees. I'm only going to start taking it seriously when I've got, when I've got a space that I'm working in. And you know what then happens? Because of your lack of those systems, when you do have those things, even when you now have a warehouse, even now when you have employees, you're still running it like it's a spaza. You're late all the time. Your things aren't ready, but you look like a fully fledged business. And I think like there is a greater conversation, particularly in the event space. I've had some great experiences because I've worked with, people luckily that I knew and trusted. But for the most part, I do think the PR around the events business has to really, really change. Like we have to do better. What would you say are some of like maybe 3 things that, or just a couple that you equip your suppliers with? Because most of them, I can imagine they're at different stages, of their businesses. Some have just started. Some are. You've got somebody who's just you've got somebody who's just a makeup artist, for example. Yeah. What are some of the things that you are equipping them with that you believe can help their businesses go the distance? That actually gives me, as somebody who maybe wants to use your platform, peace of mind to say, if I find a supplier through this platform, this is what it guarantees me.
So for me, the first thing is the art of collaboration, which we really don't have. And the businesses that are doing well are not incubating other businesses. Remember, things are learned through examples and mentorship. That's why mentorship is such a thing. And just if you haven't been in the professional space and you haven't shadowed somebody who's doing excellently and being able to sit back and watch what they're doing, how are you then going to know what's missing in your space? So the one thing I really advocate for across all of our, call them the Tech Entrepreneurs, is collaboration. So we have a WhatsApp group. And on the WhatsApp group, we have different days for different social media platforms. But Mondays is Marketing Mondays. So normally the whole week, the texting section is blocked only for admins. But on Monday, I open it up to everybody. And I start coaching them and saying, listen, this is your community here. There's a photographer that's being asked for a caterer. There's a caterer that's being asked for an MC. There's an MC that's being asked for a sound system. This is where we all meet. I need you all to put your best foot forward. Tell us about get into the system of talking about your business and what you do and how you can be of service to everybody else on this platform that's in the same boat as you are, right? Yeah. So we do that. And one of the things, the first week, I think only 5 people replied. Sure. Because we just don't talk about our businesses. And when they started talking about their business, they just sent 10 pictures. And I'm like, now I need you to tell me the story about the 10 pictures you've just sent. What is it that you're offering? Where do I find you? Which area are you based? Are you national or do you service? Are you willing to travel? So those are the kind of things that I've started inputting on this group. And I've even said, I looked at the profiles. So when they create a profile on the traditional events directory, they need to upload 5 pictures. They need to say what they do, price range, plus minus, and where they're based. Basic. I look at some of the profiles, then I have to contact the people and say, hey, your profile is not putting your best foot forward. I need you to do the following first to put your best foot forward, because you'll only get booked once you are seen and you portray a professional outlook. We have about, like I said, 500 businesses on the traditional events directory currently. I can say 98% of them have Gmail addresses. Right? There's a domain is about 100 Rand to actually get a @digugu.com. It's literally about 100 Rand, 200 Rand per year, right? But that investment lifts your business up that much further, right? Getting a WhatsApp line. There are businesses where you WhatsApp them, or you try and reach out to them that's only call only or message only. I'm like, who's still looking at messages in this age? You need to move with the times. So the main thing that I would say sets it apart, the main 3 things is, firstly, you have a community. And I say on this community, if you're stuck with something, ask. There was somebody who was looking for a tent and somebody replied. And immediately these 2 people met and went off and are going to go plan the event on the platform. It's an opportunity to know how to put yourself forward from somebody who is in marketing and is a go-to-market manager who understands how to take products to people. If I scroll on your social media and I can't find where to contact you, and I can't find what your business name is, your user 1456, whatever, but I can see you've got a business. People scroll past you. So I'm saying, let's remove all of the social media pressure. Let's come onto one simple platform where all of your profiles will be uniform. Basically, your pictures will be what sets your best foot forward. And let us incubate you. Let us help you. And also, we are promoting the entire platform as a whole. So everybody, all 500 businesses, they get the opportunity to be seen. But further to that, one of the feedback that I got from one of my tech entrepreneurs was that when they get a lead, everybody gets it, even if it's not in their area, and they are finding it a bit spammy. And I said, my darling, that's market research. If you don't know what your customers in the event space that you are in are requiring and asking for, how are you going to know how to pivot your business? How are you going to know what to add next if you don't know what the trends are? I have given you a free access to trends that are focused into your space. Use it to learn and use it to craft your business going forward.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I guess it also just goes back to the importance of taking your business probably even more seriously than you take yourself, right? Seeing it as an extension of yourself and really kind of getting into this thing of what does it look like? You know, you want it to look even more professional than it could be. You could be doing it in your back room, but when we see, you know, like what you're talking about with the email domain, you know, small things like that you've got 200 Rand lying somewhere, you know, but for whatever reason, people can't get out of their heads to just be like, let me make this investment. But you also want people to invest in you, but you're not investing in the business. So it doesn't make sense. So I want us to pivot when, you know, when you and I started speaking on social media, you spoke, because I think we had done a couple of months ago, we'd done a podcast episode around marriage and the culture of marriage, and also just the pressure for women to be married, and the sense that when you aren't, and I think even men experience this pressure probably at different levels.
Yeah.
That when you're not, there's something missing, you're not enough. And often then that then leads women, no matter how successful they are, because this is a conversation I've been having with a friend of mine, where, when you hear that, somebody who's a lawyer, was staying in like a really hectic, abusive relationship, or somebody who's an advocate, or somebody who's a doctor, or somebody, and the question is always like, but how? This person's so educated. This person is like, why would they stick with somebody like this, And I'm like, patriarchy, dog, like it's a strong drug. It does not matter. And it doesn't pick, right? It does not matter how successful you are. If it has been drilled into you that marriage is the one and only prize, you can be a CEO of a company and you will stick with a man that is disrespectful, that's beating you up, that's cheating, just so that you can keep this facade of, I am married, and you keep this facade of like, I have it all.
Yeah.
So I really, it's one of those things that really frustrate me about where we are as a society. But I think we're starting to have more conversations around it. But I also wanted you to bring us a little bit more into your own experience with that pressure, and how it worked out for you.
So I saw a post yesterday on social media, right? That I looked at and just giggled at. It said, married men go further in their careers, right? Single women go further in their careers.
Yeah.
Right?
There's actually been studies that have proved that.
And also simple bank statistics. I was listening to one of the radio shows the other day, and they were discussing how predominantly females are now the main appliers of home loans, and who are now owning property and investing in property and so forth. And there's this new flow of rich auntie coming up. And rich auntie is the auntie that's never been married, doesn't have kids, but is living her best life. So for me, when I got married when I was 27, and it was pressure I put on myself. It wasn't a societal pressure. It wasn't a family pressure, right? My parents got married when they were 20. And when you grew up in a well set out household where your parents met early and so forth, you want it for yourself. So by 25, I was like, who's gonna marry me? I'm running out of time. My parents did it when they were 20. What's next? And therefore, I then moved into the desperado stage, where you then start overlooking the basics, because now you're chasing this thing that you think is going to define you and is going to make you who you need to be. So then I got married to my ex-husband, and it was the biggest. I would do it again given the opportunity, because I learned so much from that experience, right? Just from even planning the event. So we got married in KZN, even though we live here in Joburg, simply because looking at venues and being expensive and happened to find something super beautiful by the beach, KZN, half the price. But then started the nightmare of finding suppliers within KZN, and I was like, oh goodness. And not being from KZN and not knowing and being part of the by word of mouth circles, I really struggled. My makeup artist was from Joburg. Half the decor was hired from Joburg and had to be schlepped down, which was now those things that you thought you were saving on by having a cheaper venue in Durban. You're not, because you just simply don't know how to plan an event here, right? That was the first part. Then it was the financing this thing, right? We are always advised to do premarital counseling, but one thing that I feel like really lacks is premarital financial counseling, like financial planning, sitting as a couple and actually planning what are our financial goals and what base are we taking this marriage off from? What are our family obligations? And with what we currently have, how are we going to sustain it and build onto it, right? Over and above that, legal counseling. Like, what does this mean for you guys legally? I saw last week a court ruling, Cape Town, where now stepfather must now pay maintenance for kids simply because he showed them a lifestyle. He's no longer with the mom, but now he needs to keep on paying because the courts don't play when it comes to kids. So, and a lot of people now are getting married into blended families. Blended families are a thing where somebody, you've got a child, I've got a child, we come together and then we have children going forward. What does it look like going forward for all of these kids? Is there even an education plan going forward for all of these kids? The foundations, guys, the foundations. Failure to plan is planning to fail. And I feel like I chased the wedding, the day that was the wedding, and when the reality of the marriage hit, of all the things I swept under the carpet and I didn't go into the nitty-gritty with, I was then left shook and disturbed. I was literally married for 18 months.
Oh, hectic.
We dated actually longer than what we were actually married for. And while even though you have a prenup, I always say, guys, a prenup protects you as an umbrella, but it doesn't protect you from somebody's everyday spending habits. If somebody is moreki and spends the child's school fees at the bar that Friday, and your child school calls you on Monday and says, Miss Ma'am, school fees needs to be paid, you're out of pocket. And that doesn't fall and doesn't get covered in a prenup. So you need to understand where you're starting from. And the best place to understand somebody's financial habits is a bank statement, because that's where you see where the money actually goes. And can I deal with this person's habits? Where can we cut back so we can invest more for our future? All of that you can only see on a bank statement. And I didn't do that with my partner. And at the point where I was now asking for these bank statements, he wasn't giving them to me. And then he had 2 bank accounts. So he gave me one bank account, didn't give me the other.
Sure.
And I was like, no, but this is not where your salary goes in. I need to see the main one. And I don't get where the money is going. And I'm feeling financial pressure. I thought you had this sorted. You end up then leaving a marriage with such bad credit.
Sure.
That you need to start from scratch in building yourself back. And the same thing can happen to a gentleman who marries a lady with bad spending habits. You need to know a marriage is building, guys.
Yeah.
It's not a take thing. We're not trying to take from each other. We're bringing what we have and we're saying, let's build on it. And you can't build with somebody who has a breakdown mentality. And that's what you need to decipher before you walk down that aisle.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that actually you get into probably what's one of the most serious contracts that you
life
will
altering.
Life altering. And for the most part, because there's this, like, you've romanticized this idea of marriage, all you're thinking about really is this wedding day and, you know, how beautiful you're going to look and how you finally become the thing, right? You finally become the thing that you've always wanted to be. But then you don't think about what building blocks you need to be able to sustain this institution that you're getting into, right?
Yeah.
And you also don't then think about, if you don't think about the building blocks that you need to sustain it, then you're not going to be able to even see if your partner has said building blocks, right? Like, so if you're saying that marriage is a building, what are you coming with? What am I coming with? And when you speak particularly about finances, we could love each other so much, but if we're both terrible at finances and you're a spender and I'm a spender and I have debt and you have debt, or you have debt and I'm financially responsible, there will be a breakdown there because we're just not going to be able to meet each other. But I do know that there is an apprehension. So now you're talking about, bank statements. There is an apprehension for people to have those conversations prior. What are some of the ways that, when you have clients, or in general from your experience, that you think people can navigate having those conversations before saying I do and before walking down the aisle?
So with the traditional events directory, we have the counseling section where we've got premarital counselors, lawyers, and of course, financial planners. And I encourage them that when a lead comes through, and somebody says, I am having a lobola celebration. This is your lights, camera, action. Time to send this person a message and say, hello, this is who I am. I see you're having a lobola negotiation or so forth. Have you considered the following? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because a lot of people don't consider those things because it's out of sight, out of mind. And that's why I like a platform where everything lives in one space, where the person who's planning the event can literally switch through the categories and find what's there. We have one called additional services, where we find interesting things like ushering services that can elevate your business. But the basics are there. And unless somebody knows to look for something, or somebody advises people to look for something, they are not going out there to go look for it. I had a post go viral where I was saying what I require before I get married, and one of it was the 3 months bank statements and people went in the comments and were like, are you a financial service that we're applying for? Like, what is it exactly that you require all of these things for? And I'm saying, I fear being broke more than I fear being single. Right?
Yeah.
I fear a breakdown of my systems. Boroto is for me paramount. And once my boroto is solved, everything else we can figure out. And we're not saying that people that have debt and so forth shouldn't get married. And that's why there is financial planners. Bring in people where you have weaknesses for them to help you plan. It gives you such better peace of mind to go, okay, we've sat in, come as you are with your finances, and have a person who's not your family member look at them, dissect them and say, guys, cut back here, plan here. You guys can do it. You can do it sustainably, but you need to change some behaviors. And by the time you say I do, you should have started working on those behaviors, and that is not something that you're working on afterwards.
I think the apprehension, particularly from men, is because of the idea that, right, as the man, you are the provider, right? And so by virtue of you being the provider, the expectation is that you've had all of this stuff figured out, right? The expectation is that you financially you're solid. And, there's a friend of mine that I always, used to speak to, who says like, women scare me sometimes because they'll just meet me at like face value and already decide that I'm their husband. And that I'm husband material. And he's like, it's because they're looking at these superficial things. Like, I've got a car, I've got my own apartment, I've got a job. He's like, this car, it could be in arrears. That apartment might not even be in my name, but no one is asking those questions. And I think often as women, we're also just so eager to be married that you don't go beyond the surface, where you're like, okay, actually, let me put this thing to the test. I've met Simangmang and I love them and I think they're great. Okay, let me actually stress test this thing, right? Like, I listened to this one podcast and this guy was saying like, marriage is, whenever you're going to have a car out into the market, what they do is before they send that out there, they take that model and they put it in one of those forklifts and they shake it. Like they shake it really, they really grievously. And if anything falls out, if anything is not secure, then they know they still have to go back. And I think the fear of that is that the fear of people having these conversations about finances, the fear of people having these conversations about what are your value systems, what do you believe in, what are your deal breakers, what is your idea of respect? Like, can I talk back to you? How do we argue? How do you take feedback from a woman? Things like that. The fear of people asking those questions is because they are afraid that once they stress test it, it might not hold, and it means they might have to let go. And they want so badly to do the thing. I want the marriage, and so you're gonna overlook it. Let's just do it. Let's just get married. But the reality is, then if you don't stress test it, marriage is going to stress test it.
Correct. Having kids is going to
test stress. Like really those conversations, even about having kids, right? Around what is your role as a man when it comes to having kids, right? Like it's a conversation my husband and I had way before we were married, right? Where it's like, do you believe you're the guy that just kind of sits and watches from afar? You come back home and the kids are like, yay. Maybe you pick them up and then you put them down, and then it's, because there are men out there who don't believe that they should change diapers, who don't believe that they should do anything really that's feminine, relating to their children. So having those conversations prior, even though it's scary because it might mean that you could let go of this potential, is actually so much better in the long run. But I also think, like, with your experience, right, this is something you had been wanting for a long time. It's something that you had idolized, right? And then 8 months in, you were like, nah. What led you to that decision, considering how important marriage had been to you for all your life?
So for me, I've always had a rule about 50-50, right? And not in contributing, in happiness. If I'm now 40% happy and 60% of the time unhappy, I'm not willing to work at it.
Sure.
It's a non-negotiable, because happiness comes with a lot of mental things. There are people who get sick, not because there's anything wrong with them, but simply because they're in toxic environments and they don't prioritize their happiness. And within a happy space, you're able to think clearly. You're able to plan. I looked at my life in the direction that it was going in that 18 months, and I said, I don't recognize myself. I don't see a future here. And the longer I stay here, the longer you stay on a train, the more expensive it is, the ticket to go back. So I thought, I'm jumping off right over here, leaving all I know, leaving all I thought was, I've tried it, tested it, I need to pivot. And you need to let go, because a lot of people are like, what will people say? I do not suffer from what will people say syndrome, because people are not sitting and crying with me in my bed at night. People are not sitting in my bank account thinking, Akuna. They're not there.
Yeah.
People don't pay you. And you need to understand that. Their comments are not going to dry your tears and put you back together. You will. So prioritize your happiness. And in regard, something that you said touched me in regards to men and the partners also that they get into relationships with, and along those lines. I have a few friends who are male. And because they didn't have these conversations while starting up, something happens to their job and they get depressed.
Sure.
Because the partner who lays with them at night is not somebody that they can go to and say, honey butata, how are we putting 1 + 1 together to go solve what exactly is going on? They're dealing with it alone, but they have a live partner. And you get a lot of males who are depressed because they've set their expectations with a lady. The lady is just living her best life and spending like there's no tomorrow. Tomorrow we need to keep up with the Joneses. Tomorrow we need to keep up with those Joneses. And poor guy is struggling. struggling because they can't say, Miss Ma'am, it's time to tighten the belt. Miss Ma'am, we can loosen the belt now and let's go forward. We need to have those conversations, guys. We are so quick to show people what's under our clothes, but the true place where it really matters is what's inside your soul. But people are committing suicide. People are depressed. People are killing other people, killing their spouses simply because conversations are not being had. Kids are being raised without moms or even dads, mainly dads, because fundamental conversations were skipped at the beginning.
No, 100%. And I think it's also important to have this conversation at both a male and female level, right? The questions, I think a lot of the time, so when somebody hears you say, I want to see your 3 months bank statement, immediately the aversion or the thing comes from men. The idea is that it's only the men that must, volunteer these. And it's like, no, actually, both parties must come together and say, this is what my life looks like. This is what I have. This is where it's not really making sense. And I think that transparency can also lift that heaviness from men's shoulders of always having to have things figured out. And I think even with what you're talking about, right? Like if you and your husband had come into this and he had been forthcoming about, I have these things that, because sometimes, the loans we have, we opened a loan for our parent because we needed to buy them a house or we needed to build a house. Like sometimes people are in debt because of their families, and it's not necessarily them being negligent. It's just because they've taken too much responsibility. And the point of the partnership is now 2 heads are better than one.
Yes.
Then now I can come in and I can say, maybe it's time to tell the parents we need to scale back. Maybe it's time. How do we fix this thing? But when men are unwilling to be vulnerable and when men are unwilling to kind of take that cloak off and to say, look, this is where I fall short. Can you receive me, as this? Then eventually the breakdown will happen and it will affect the both of us. So correct. I really would encourage men and women to listen to this conversation from a perspective of, no, we're not saying you're the one that we're putting on blast and we're saying, what's wrong with you? Whatever. It's like both parties, it's transparency. It's us, it's both of us coming together and saying, here's my actual bank statement. And then also here's the bank statement of my life, right? Yes. Here's what goes in, here's what comes in. This is where I get my joy from. This is where I give my joy from, whatever, that looks like. And I think when we can move from there, what we're actually doing again is we're putting systems in place.
Correct.
To your point, and we're ensuring that this thing can live beyond this love. Right, it can live beyond
the wedding.
It can live beyond the wedding,
yes.
And we're seeing a lot more divorce rates now because it's you look at it and you're like, it's not worth it. It's not worth my happiness. I think we could still see more. I think there's a lot of women who still hold on because of what will people say, and really,
and men too who hold on
because then what happened? Oh, you couldn't provide. Oh, you couldn't this. It makes you look some type of way. But I think the more transparent we are about where we are, about what it is that we're hoping to achieve, and I think this even actually links to business as well. It's like really looking at yourself as a business owner, right? Like, what are your flaws? What are you good at? What are you not good at? Where do you need additional help? So that you can move this thing forward. And it's you plan for things that you care about.
Yeah.
You plan for things that you care about. And I hope that it can resonate from that level, that you're not being put on blast. It's not as an opportunity for somebody to disrespect you, because men have this thing that, then when I show you, then you're not going to respect me. And if you do meet somebody like that, if you are transparent with somebody about your financial shortcomings and they lose their respect for you, then that's good.
They're not for you.
They're not the person that you should be with. I think it's better to know these things earlier.
Ahead of time, guys. Yeah. Get off the train at the first station. Don't get off much later.
Yeah. So to close off, you are in a unique position to kind of be in this business space that deals a lot with events, most of which are weddings and things like that. And then you've also had the experience of being married, of doing it, albeit maybe abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
What is your parting shot for women that are kind of on that precipice where this is actually something that I really want? This is something that I desire. What are some of the questions they can ask themselves? And what does it look like for them to move into the space with more intention rather than just, I want to be married?
I think they need to look at themselves and really ask them, what are they doing it for, right? And how is it going to grow them just as much as how they're going to grow this person? And if that answer is not clear, then what are you doing, right? And for me, a stress test, like you say, your relationship, ask for that 3 months bank statement and see if it comes up. And if it doesn't, you are going to have problems, because that's one indicator of, if you're hiding simple things like finances for me, what else are we not going to be able to discuss? And once you're married, guys, no subject is taboo when you're married. And I've seen on social media last week also, there was a couple where grocery was bought on one side and not on the other. And this mentality of, I'm marrying this person, but I'm not going to accept their child. I'm not going to accept their family. I'm not going to accept, is a problem. When you marry a person, you take them with everything and their entire baggage. If you're willing to look at this person and take them with everything that is colorful that they come with, because they were a person before you came into their lives, then go forward with it. If there's something that you're still looking at and that's sketchy, take a little bit of time to see if it's something that you're willing to deal with or not. But stop saying your child can't come here and think you're going to sweep a child under a carpet. No.
If it's something that you're not like into, then don't do it.
Don't do it. And ladies, I love you to bits. We don't run panel beating companies. If your person has a certain type of behavior and they're a certain kind of way, a marriage accelerates. It's like a catalyst. It's like petrol to a fire. If somebody is already swearing at you before you get married, they're going to beat you up once you're married, because now you're like, she's stupid, she stayed. If a woman, for example, is making you broke as a guy and you don't see a future with her, the minute she's married to you, she's like, haha, I am now going to take full advantage of you. Those behaviors don't get fixed with marriage. Signing that contract makes them worse, because now you feel like you're stuck.
And there's nothing that you can do about it. I think this conversation's great. And I think if you're a person that's honest with yourself, if you're a person that's honest with others, this should not make you uncomfortable.
No.
If this makes you uncomfortable, there's a couple of questions that you need to start asking. Like, why is it that you don't want to have these conversations? And perhaps maybe you're with the kind of person right now where they haven't created the space where you feel comfortable enough to have that conversation. That's something to look at. That means that it may not be a you thing, it may be a them thing. So really probe into yourself and figure out what that's about. Thank you so much for this. Really, it was such a great conversation, and I loved that we were able to touch on businesses, particularly as Black entrepreneurs, and the importance of really running our businesses with intention, and running our businesses with systems, and ensuring that they're professional, and also collaborating. Any closing words before we go?
So for me, it's just simple. Go after your dreams, right? And you will have self-doubt, you will have imposter syndrome, you will question yourself most of the time, right? But have the audacity to go for what you want. Like, you really need to have the audacity. Somebody said to me last week, or this week actually, he's like, have the confidence of a cockroach. When there's visitors, you need to have the confidence of a cockroach.
I'm coming out.
To go out for your dreams. And if you look at everybody that has made it, they're delusional to a certain extent. Cut out all the noise, cut out all the naysayers, and go for it. Go for your best life possible in whatever sense that is, whether it be career-based, in a career goal, whether it be relationship. Go after it.
And settle for nothing less.
I
absolutely love that. Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for staying this long. I think that whether you're looking to get married, whether you're in business, or whether you're working, I think this is such an important conversation, because there's just so much to reflect on how seriously you take yourself as a person, and the energy that you emit out there. I'm really, really grateful that you stuck around. Let me know what you thought in our comment section. I would really, really love it. And please keep a lookout. You are Marketing by Her.
Yes, Marketing by Her on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, and on Facebook. And of course, we've got the website, which is www.marketingbyherza.com, where all the apps are there, all the businesses are there. So one-stop shop to actually get to know the brand and see how we can help you. Either plan your event, grow your business, or plan a seamless event with our RSVP communication tools.
I love it. Marketing by Her. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye.